Okay, so that you get all the limelight. Okay, so we had a lovely session and a very enlightening opening address by Umesh in the morning. Summary from the last session so that we have a linkage to what we're going to talk about. The customer is ever more demanding. The customer wants the service and the product of her choice at a time of her choice from the variety that she wants to choose from. And that makes the demand forecasting very difficult, but still we should demand forecast, as Umesh said. In the new era, the customer is also saying, I will order, but I may want to change the time of delivery and the place of delivery at a subsequent point of time after placing the order. Yeah. For different channels, we are now launching different products. For a general trade versus a e-commerce, versus D2C versus a quick commerce. All different channels, different customer needs. The same lady is doing shopping on across all the shop channels, but different shopper needs and therefore asking for different products. It adds to the load onto the supply chain because we are now adding to our number of SKUs with shorter shelf lives. Yeah, and further to add to it, the customer and the shopper is now ever more knowledgeable about the channels. We do not know where she is going to go and place her order, on a Instagram or a Facebook or which channel. On top of it, we have technology itself as a big disruptor. It is now more so easier to capture data, do a lot of big data analysis, and process it at a much lower cost versus it was earlier. In this new setup of doing things and doing business, we are here to discuss in the next 1 hour what should be our innovative methods of moving the product from the factories to our customers, be a B2B customer or an end customer, and do it in a sustainable manner. Sustainability is a very big word already, and it's going to become even more important in the eyes of the customers and our stakeholders. We are shareholder or a customer. To the extent that the government has recently spoken about greenwashing brands. Like saying, okay, are you really doing what you're claiming in your brand proposition? And we want you to prove it. That's where we are heading in the area of sustainability. And that's the important impact that claiming to be a sustainable company makes on a customer choosing your product versus others. In this session, we are going to constrain ourselves to infrastructure, logistics, and warehousing. Yeah, so it's going to be a very focused discussion. Brings in a lot of experience, as you see on the stage, and from across sectors. We've got academia, and we've got Century Ply, which is construction. We've got service providing companies, and we've got a FMCG company brand as well. So before we go into complete details of things, I would request the panelists to just introduce themselves very shortly in a few sentences.
This is Anirban, Sanyal. I'm heading supply chain for Century Ply. I think for the interest of time raised, you can check in LinkedIn because everybody can really, the matter of seconds. Yeah.
Hello everyone, I am Ashish Bhatnagar and I head the procurement for Bimbo Bakeries India. We have 3 brands in India, which is Harvest Gold, Madaan and Kitty. So now you would be recognizing it because some of these brands are there daily in your homes. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Professor Jitender Madhyan. I'm Chair Operations and Supply Chain Management at Department of Management Studies, IIT Delhi. And of course, I've been teaching subjects on the supply chain management and even, of course, my specialization in especially product recovery systems, so you call it return management or reverse logistics.
Hi everybody, my name is Kapil Premchandani and I'm a solution manager at Kearney Supply Chain Solutions Private Limited. My idea is to provide solutions to customers and we work in diverse industries, right from FMCG to apparel to lubricants to paints to e-commerce. And my job is to craft solutions and provide solutions. That's what I do in my organization. Thank you.
We have a desk there. Please register yourself as the scale member. I'm already introduced.
Thank you, Umesh. Thanks, Kapil. So first question to Kapil from the very focused topic that we have for today, and that makes it so very interesting for all of us. You've, Kapil, worked across sectors and you have more than 2 decades of experience seeing how the evolution is on the customer side, the shippers, and how the shoppers have changed. So what has been your experience over the last 2 decades and where do we stand today?
Honestly speaking, there is a great change in supply chain which has been happening over the last 2 decades of time. Now, and it's the paradox of change, if you look at it from a warehousing standpoint, we were working in godowns, from godowns to warehouses to facilities now. This has changed dramatically. Now, in my own experience, when I started this organization way back in 2005, and that point of time, the norm of the warehouses was 8-meter high warehouses. And essentially, we decided to, let's say, build warehouses which are 8-meter high warehouses. In a very short span of time, that 8-meter definition became to a 12-meter high warehouse. I'm talking about the eve height of the warehouse. So typically what's happening, this change is evolving over a period of time. And what is happening, since the scale is becoming important, you can only handle scale with a scientific approach. So what is happening at one point of time when we were running a warehouse for, let's say, a consumer brand companies, we were only, let's say, working on building the office. We were only looking at having a genset inside the place and the bay marking. And now you see it is evolving to racks inside the warehouse, to automation inside the warehouse. The story is quite dramatic and it continues to evolve, and it surprises me also at times. And within the same warehouse, working for the same brand, what also happens is you have multiple channels to take care. You have a general trade, which requires a very different approach. You have a modern trade, which requires a very different approach. You have a quick commerce, which requires a very different approach. At the same point of time, you have to also integrate the software with the software of these marketplaces as well, all happening in the same warehouse. So what is happening over a span of time, these warehouses currently as we speak, and essentially supply chain is gaining more and more prominence because the complexities are increasing. And for handling these complexities, as Umesh was telling in the last presentation, in the last session, that now should we invest to handle that scale, or we should wait for that scale to come and then invest? So that is the question with which I am grappling with right now. Let me be very honest with you. That's where we are.
Thanks, Kapil. That was very useful. From your eyes and the way you have seen it for the last 2 decades, serving very ably on this sector, I must say the changes that we've seen in the last 20 years have got accelerated in the last 3 years. The way things are completely turning around and taking new shape, that time period of a complete changeover is becoming shorter and shorter. If we talk of AI or ML, they were buzzwords earlier, but they are being used and have use cases being talked of, successful use cases even today. And we only see that things will change faster in shorter period of time with faster adoption of technologies. I want to hear from you, Professor Madaan. From an academic's perspective, you have also very carefully observed the industry and taught the subject. So what is your view on how we stand today in infrastructure, logistics, and what do you see the future like?
Okay, actually, as it has been called out there, that there's been an increase in complexity. I think every one of us are recalling some sort of requirement for a very strong standardization, which is still missing out there. I think we needed that standardization, and of course, when you're talking about the innovation, you're talking about the growth or the newness that has been happening in the area of supply chains right now. AI, of course, is like the major game changer which is coming up, and you will be surprised out there the amount of investment that is happening in the domain of generative AI, or we call it to be applied AI, is somewhere like $10 to $15 trillion. And it's a huge amount. And you will further be surprised out there, out of that total amount, 60% is being distributed to two domains, which we say one is marketing, the other one is supply chains. They are taking huge intervention of AI. So whatever the tools, whatever the technology you can think about, whatever the way with which we have been working on, there is a tremendous change we are expecting in the near future. So the way we have been designing, the way we have been approaching, I think AI has an important role to play in that. And we cannot skip it somehow. And if I say you have down the line, who will be the sort of fourth player out there, who will be the major player, we have to identify that. And of course, one more thing that is sort of being impacted by the supply chain side, the major investment that is right now is being there in the area of clean energy. Somehow we are thinking that AI is taking the huge chunk out there, but the clean energy is is the major, although the investment in innovation is less, but the investment is very, very high. But that will also impact the supply chain in the future. That will has a huge impact on the supply chains.
That's very well said, and that's linking us to our topic, as we promised to you all that we're going to talk a lot on sustainability and innovation in the field of logistics and warehousing. And I would request Ashish to share with us his learning and his views on Scope 1. What all lies in Scope 1? We have heard Scope 1, 2, 3. In Scope 1, what does it mean for the logistics field, and how we as logistics heads, supply chain heads can make a difference there?
Thanks. So I think being a part of supply chain and procurement, none of you can get away from sustainability. And this is the team, I think they are working on sustainability as a forefront. When we talk about Scope 1, for simplicity for everyone, whatever you can do in your facilities and your factories comes as a part of Scope 1. Whatever you are doing along with your supplier in their facilities is a part of Scope 2. And wherever you have to do with the raw materials, so we are a part of foods. So if you have to, let's say, buy sustainable wheat or sustainable raw materials, that comes as a part of Scope 3, because you are then working with the farmers. Now, coming to Scope 1, which is the part of our topic, there are a lot of avenues which we can run in terms of moving to a sustainable source. And carbon emissions is something which almost every company has a goal. Giving you some small figures, the carbon emission intensity for grid-based power is almost 1000 CO2 per kilowatt hour. And for solar power, it is 2270, depending upon the solar cells, kilowatt hour. And when you multiply it with your consumption, it gives you the carbon emissions. So what most of the organizations are now doing are moving to cleaner source of power, cleaner source of fuels. Similarly, the emission factor from diesel is around 2.6, and emission factor from natural gas is somewhere around 2. So less carbon is emitted into the environment. A lot of companies have good net zero goals, and some of the companies have neutral goals. Some of the companies also have negative goals. And therefore, it is very important that you change all of your facilities, not only fuel and power, but how efficiently you can run your lines. So there are fuel savers which you can install in your lines. How can you automate and reduce the power consumption itself, not only the cleaner sources, but how do we reduce the consumption? So most of it becomes a part of the Scope 1.
Right, thank you. And I'm sure the audience would have questions around the topics and subtopics that we're discussing. Please make a note of it. We'll have time for you to ask those to the speakers. I will just add here what we just spoke about: sustainability, investments, infrastructure. Is it a and or a or? I do investments in sustainability, but I'm not sure if I'll get cost benefits. I personally believe it is a and. I get cost savings also while I'm making progress in the sustainability agenda. Now that is the and that we need to establish and identify. If you look at things, solar energy, cheaper than the regular electricity cost, recycling of water, recycling of packaging material, all of it is essentially also saving you cost. Now, the question remains on the big investments and the capex kind of agenda. Solar power cells, it's a 7-year capex break even, so you put a capex now. And therefore, my question goes to Umesh, who has led in his previous organization some very superb, large ticket capex in Andhra and in Telangana, Telangana and in Goblej. So my question to you is, how does the organization see to it that there's an organization goal and there's a capex? How do the two come together as a seamless journey?
Super. Very close to my heart question. Sorry if I'll take more time. So from a sustainability standpoint, first of all, there is again a blind spot. There are two kinds of solutions you can do on sustainability. One is operational also. It's always not about investment. It's always not about spend on a solar panel or wind energy or something else which will, or EVs, which will give you carbon credit and you can have an impact to the environment. It's also operational. For example, we did a study with MeBack and realized that about 86% of our transport trip time in India is non-value added. If you consider a trip time, only 14% is adding value to the whole transportation, which is running time, loading time and unloading time. Otherwise, mostly it is waiting time and inefficient time at different points during the whole journey. But turnaround time as a lever in India is very ignored. It is something which people don't want to look at. They have got used to a point A to a point B freight. They don't care how the transport service provider runs and how many trips does he do from a point A to point B, how much does he wait at point B, comes back at point A. If he runs more trips, you're actually saving money. So the concept of paying for freight for time is something which is very ignored. You're not necessarily always paying for the distance. You're paying for the time and the load, of course. So I think there itself, if you have an initiative where you reduce and improve your turnaround time by, let's say, 10%, of course, you will save 2% of freight. But there is a huge impact sustainability as well. There's a huge impact on carbon emissions. There's a huge impact which you can create there and generate your carbon credit goal, whatever you have in your organization. Coming back to investment, I always feel whenever I talk to a lot of people about palletized transportation or ASRS or moving from forklift to a robot or AGV, that people somehow tend to forget the larger picture. When you do a business case or a payback, it becomes very important as a leader to take 2 steps back and understand the whole impact of a solution. Palletized transportation, for example, also is big service. It's also reach to the market which you can reach early. Yes, you will lose on loadability. Of course, the utilization will come down because you will occupy a little bit of cube, you will occupy a little bit of weight as well. But if you improve even 1 trip per month and make it from 15 to 16, it more than pays back, gives you 14% of saving. Plus, it's also sustainable. So I think somewhere people are losing the whole picture of getting pressurized by the CFOs who are seen as villains of approvals of these projects, that you become very tactical to that particular site and that particular siloed function of going back to them and just telling them कि मुझको ये gain मिलने वाला है. My function is only able to gain 1, 2, 3. It should be more as an organization. So payback exercise, I think, is a huge gap to me, is what I feel, where we should educate and make people more aware of building a more holistic payback. And sometimes payback could also be qualitative. It's okay. Like the ESRS example I quoted in the last discussion, it was very qualitative. it will take 4.5 years for you to do that payback. But if you need a particular throughput, you will get it irrespective of anyone. So you meet and you protect your market share more on time, become more responsive. So it's more holistic approach rather than very siloed. So somewhere I think we should build that in our education system as well, on how do we make it more practical. We teach payback and business case theories, but people get very siloed in their own approach. So somehow we should work on this separately, or have a separate operational lean or Six Sigma team who looks at it more as a gain to the function, to the organization rather than the function.
Thank you. That's gems of wisdom from hands-on experience, making big ticket size capex investments. I would also like to hear the same challenge from the service provider's perspective, Kapil. Large customers come and say, okay, हमारा एक sustainability agenda है. We want you to start using EVs because I want to show it to my super senior CEO has to report something in the quarterly report that we are doing something in green. But we will not do a capex, you do the capex. We have so much of challenge around multiple channels. Order will come in units and not in cartons anymore. You manage, you create capex yourself, you create extra area, but we will not pay you anything. I'm wondering if such conversations have happened. How are you looking at the ROI in such situations and how do you manage?
So Shammi, before I answer this question, I'll draw an analogy, and this takes me back to the first question where I spoke about paradox of building assets. Now, if you look at, let's say, the e-commerce industry, which started to build warehouses, and I'll correlate this with the question which you have said. Before their assets could be sweated, before they could start making money, quick commerce came. Now, I was speaking to the founders of various e-commerce companies, and they were telling us, before we could make money, there is already a new disruption, which is quick commerce. So we have now started to discount ROI in our discussions. Being a Sindhi, I was always taught by my parents, Kapil, what is there in for you? And you have to look at a payback. And I've always been taught one thing, what is worst to worst scenario? We have to always keep one thing in mind, what is the worst can happen? When you know that what is the worst can happen, then you have to be prepared. But in today's times, especially in supply chain, especially in contract logistics, this concept of return on investment has actually gone arcane. Because as Shammi rightly pointed out, I've had multiple discussions with various clients in consumer space, in apparel space, where they're saying, because of our sustainability measures, we want to make sure you start using EVs. So I tell them, are you willing to sign a 5-year contract? Because I'm going to be investing 40 lakhs in one EV. The same Tata Ace, which is coming in 18 lakhs, the same Tata Ace is coming in 40 lakhs today. Are you willing to sign a 5-year contract? No, we don't know how this would work out. This is what comes out. And you would not believe, then I tell them, if you don't know how it works out, how do you expect me to invest in that and make it work for you? And then they tell me, if you want business, you will have to do it. If you want business, you'll have to do it. And that is when ROI goes for a toss, completely. So if you have, this is the cost which you are paying for staying in the business. Now what happens is what we as a company have been doing effectively, because we are realizing that this space is changing gradually, dramatically, because we are also realizing businesses are changing. In fact, most of my customers now are forced to have D2C directly from all the warehouses what they are operating. And they are finding it increasingly difficult because their softwares can't adjust. And that's when they tell us, you do this, you do that. Now we are investing. But we don't know when the payback will come. We have decided to stop talking about that. The biggest thing when you're talking about ROIs, all of the supply chain professionals sitting in this room, and largely the product companies, I want to pose a question to all of them. What is the length of the contract we are signing? We are signing a contract of 3 years. We are signing a contract of 5 years. And today, Umesh is talking about ASRS. Some of the clients tell us about ASRS. Now, what is the investment you are making in a warehouse when it comes to automation? In my opinion, 1 lakh square feet at this point of time for a product company is costing $1 million in capex. But they are only signing a 5-year agreement with you, whereas they are expecting you to depreciate that asset over 108 to 120 months. What they are expecting, now what happens is tomorrow after the 5 years, if they decide to not renew the contract, what happens to the assets? Some of them are willing to give you a buyback clause. Now, once the buyback is also, how does the buyback happen? In a warehouse, typically where capex is invested, it is very difficult to dismantle racks. Dismantling racks and reinstalling it itself will cost you close to 300 to 400 to 500 rupees a pallet. I think the need of the hour when we are talking of sustainability is to first start looking at long-term contracts. That is something our country should be doing, all the product companies should be doing, at least for their key warehouses, where investments are in $1 million. And we are yet to see that maturity happening in our subcontinent. This is one part of it. The second thing, if you look at it, from a sustainability standpoint, as Umesh was saying, first it is very important for us before we invest into solar panels, before we keep investing into rain harvesting, we invest into electric vehicles. Most of the companies don't even look at the layout of their warehouses. Because it's very important, you can actually build a lot of sustainability. Most of the companies, you ask them what is the number of units of electricity, what your warehouse is consuming. Most of them wouldn't have answers to that. In fact, in my own teams, when I review with my teams and I ask my teams, what is the biggest gray area which we are facing? Whenever we are writing an RFQ to any customer, the biggest gray area is electricity cost. Because brands are very clear, we want a cost per pallet or a cost per box, come what may. Now, right now, if a torrent is charging you 12 rupees, 23 rupees a unit, it can easily become a 16 rupees, 40 paisa per unit. But I can't go back to the supply chain fraternity because they are very clear, you've signed the contract, man. We don't know. Now, what happens in this case? You have to have a very robust layout in the warehouse. Now, everybody essentially wants a leak-proof warehouse. When the warehouses were built earlier, the warehouses were built with a screwing technology, because I have actually built warehouses myself as well. And then the standing seam technology came where you have to stitch the roof. But when you are installing a standing seam roof in the warehouse, you can't put skylights. But the moment you can't put skylights, essentially your electricity bill goes up. So where is the talk on sustainability going? Now the new techniques have come where you can also put standing seam along with skylights in the warehouse. You need to plan while racking is installed inside the warehouse, you need to make sure the aisle space of the racks is falling in that skylights. So typically you need to get into complete detailing, and I think while we are talking of sustainability, the first important matrix is to start looking at the layout of the warehouse, which should be looked at while the warehouse is built itself. You need to know where is your office space. No, in fact, most of the people don't even realize what is the processing area required. You only look at the storage area. You also need to look at the processing area. In an apparel kind of a space, you need more processing area because you have to do tagging, de-tagging, scanning. So the devil lies in the detail. When you're talking about sustainability, as Umesh was rightly saying, you need not do all these investments right now. First, you need to look within what you are doing, how you are doing, and whether there is scope for improvement. You won't believe we have our own IT tech team, and by building heat maps of the warehouse. What do we mean by the heat map? Heat map tells me exactly where the forklift is, which pallet is being picked by a forklift at what time. By changing the map of the warehouse, by stocking goods in the aisles which are frequently picked, we have reduced the number of forklifts in the warehouse. Now that also adds to sustainability. IIM Bangalore has built a fantastic tool where you can essentially measure the carbon footprint of all the vehicles what you are operating, all the carbon dioxide which is being generated. But the idea is to first look at within and then look at investments. But coming back to your question of ROI, I've stopped looking at ROI. That's my answer to you.
Good, but thank you so much, Kapil. I learned a few very important points here about building it into the structure, building it right in the beginning, how your larger picture is going to look like while you're designing the warehouse itself. That's very key. I will now switch gears to Anirban, a user of facilities, a user of the services. What, Anirban, according to your understanding, are the roadblocks? Finance, we heard. What other are the roadblocks on our sustainability journey, new technologies, implementation journey? As a user, what are your views on that? Please help us.
Good afternoon all. So I'll go back to the last session. I think first of all, we need a CEO from supply chain fraternity, because how it happens, and it's a fantastic stage for us, because there are a lot of frustration around. We are equally frustrated, to be very honest. The challenge is that this is the month of February. If you are having a financial year, April to March, perhaps you are busy to prepare your next year budget or your next year AOP. And I don't think that most of us, perhaps, I cannot say any of us, cannot go to our board presenting a AOP plan saying that, this is my plan and my cost to serve per unit going to be double digit more than my last year spent. I think then it will, be time for us to update our CV and stronger our peer connection. It's the fact for most of us, whether we agree or disagree. Because we talk a lot on should. We love to talk on we should do this, we should do that. What are we doing? We try to, keep in our pocket, perhaps most of us. Facts remains that we are managing India operation. India as a country is cost sensitive. Now, I understand you are saying that ROI you kept aside, but most of us perhaps know. And when you are talking about a 7-year ROI or 7-year amortization for a roof solar panel, I am not very sure how many of the organization can hire a warehouse space keeping in mind the 7 years horizon. That means on 5th year or 6th year, I am going to utilize most of my warehouse space. And first 3 years, perhaps I am going to utilize 50% or 60% of my warehouse space. I am not very sure how many of us are so courageous to take a plan like that. I am not, to be very honest. So basically, we go for a warehouse space hiring. I am going to very basic. I am not trying to talk big because I am not, perhaps. The basics remains when I'm calculating my next year warehouse space, that what should be my hiring strategy, I'm keeping my 3-year horizons of my business plan, that what will be my business plan. That hovers my warehouse space. So I'm not very sure that am I going to spend money for 7-year amortization solar panel. There comes a risk appetite of my business partner, which is my service provider. Now, every organization has its own subject matter expertise. Now that converts into risk appetite of that organization. So when we as an organization are producing plywood, there are certain capex we are investing. Recently we had invested a lot in Andhra, we built a factory. So that is our risk appetite, keeping in mind that, investing this much, we could generate this much of business. So there, perhaps we are looking from that risk appetite where you come and say that, fine, this risk we are ready to take. Because I know for sure that I am not going to be on the same roof after 3 years. I don't think I am in a position to take that risk. So that entry-level barrier for, and I'm talking about infrastructure, to start with the warehouse. Now next coming the EV. Now EV, we started with a 0.8 tonner, 3-wheeler. Now we are in a Tata S. We're expecting a 407 kind of a size. So it's evolving. So I'm not very sure again that next 2 years what is waiting for us. And everywhere we are talking about a bigger size, a better efficiency of the battery. So there are a lot of dilemma around. So that dilemma converts into a decision dilemma. And there what happens for the organization, say for example, I'm representing a plywood company. Earlier I was with Reckitt or Whirlpool. The experience remains same, that we are not in a position perhaps as a strategic leadership also to take a risk beyond 3rd year or 4th year. And you will find that the investment around the sustainable products are all today sitting with a 5-year plus horizon for amortization, or their ROIs are coming. So that is the biggest bottleneck. And there perhaps, for example, as an individual, if I buy a EV, I get a benefit in my tax return. I'm not very sure that that is applicable for the, so government, I'm not very sure how much is coming ahead and supporting, at least to start with the EV vehicle. Because the same problem I am facing, so I'm already in discussion with someone, because the moment 8-footer bigger vehicle we receive, we are trying to do something. Because again, it's simply linked with my next year PMS, it's simply linked with my business plan next year. What differently we are going to do? to support our 7-digit or 8-digit salary, we are doing something. That's fact remains that. Now, am I going to talk in my board that, okay, I am going to engage with my business partner to take that risk and no, I'm not. I mean, engaged with the service provider. I'm showing all the positive sides. At the same time, I'm silent about the risk because I cannot take that risk. I'm not very sure how many professionals like us can take such risk of 6 to 7 years horizon ROI factor. So, Shammi, that there is, for me, that is the biggest challenge what I can see in this environment. And the government regulations, government is not yet came to the support of the industry, perhaps. So there is the second point where we are stuck, perhaps.
Yep.
This is my take.
Thanks, Anirban. Very valuable insights there. On the regulatory front, how much support we have from the regulation, the government. Also, I would want to add the technology roadblock. How evolved and how fast evolving is the battery technology or the other technologies for automation in the warehouse so that they become more cost viable operationally and from a capex perspective. And that also is happening at a very fast pace. Like we've seen in the case of data processing and data storage, today we are in a stage where companies are not thinking twice of big data analytics because it has become viable to handle large data and process it. We're looking forward to that where the payback periods become shorter by virtue of the capex or the initial investment itself coming down. Meanwhile, my question to Ashish, again back to you. What could we do? Because as an individual company, individual user, I am facing challenges. How could I collaborate with my suppliers, with my customers, or even my competitors to make the innovative technologies and sustainability agenda fly in my own domain? What are your experiences and thoughts on this?
So I'll start with from where the word sustainability has come into being. There are a lot of studies. Obviously, we are into food, so we are getting directly impacted. The temperatures have gone up. You have seen this is very rare. And IMDb has predicted that March will be 2 degrees higher. How does it impact? So if the temperature is 2 degrees higher, the productivity of wheat in India, which is going to be the next crop, it will go down. And currently we are at a stage that our production is just as equal to our consumption. And any shortage is going to result in the imports. And this is the same phenomenon worldwide. And we are seeing that over past 5 years, the overall production is going down and consumption is going up for most of the categories. And therefore, most of the food companies were the first to commit on sustainability because they were directly getting the hit. You are already seeing inflation because of weather changes. However, and most of the consumers are also talking about it. Most of the NGOs are behind most of the organizations that why are you not moving to sustainable goals. However, when you do a study with consumers, and all of you are also consumers of food, I don't think more than 1% will be ready to pay for that sustainability as of now. Because if you put your sustainability tag and put a premium product in the market, it doesn't sell. Because nobody understands the sustainability, what is happening. That is one of the challenge. And therefore, I think I agree with him. There is a cost pressure from one side. The consumer is not ready to pay. And there is a cost pressure from other side on the sustainability that the suppliers are charging more. That is where I think collaboration is very important. I would give some examples. In solar, there is an option of open access. So in open access, you invest 25% into the total capacity, and 4 or 5 of your consumers can collaborate and get solar energy from that open access to all your separate factories. It might be one state or 100 kilometers apart, but all of you can get benefited. Similarly, the expectations, because logistics have been talked about, we want to move to EVs because we want to reduce the carbon emissions. But the challenge is upfront cost is higher. The other thing, what the expectation from a consumer organization is that how the suppliers will bring efficiencies. We are not logistics experts, we are just food experts, and we cannot come into your space and bring in the efficiencies. So our expectation is that, so when you talk about an EV vehicle, the upfront cost is more, but the variable cost is almost 1/10, because a diesel vehicle or a petrol vehicle runs on 10 rupees per kilometer, an EV vehicle might be 1 rupee or 1.5 rupee. So our expectation is that, why don't you bring that efficiency? If you are running that vehicle in morning for us, why can't you run that same vehicle in evening for us, so that the overall ROI goes down? If you are able to collaborate with more and more suppliers, and in this, I think we can also collaborate with some of the customers. Somewhere the fast, I think the fast consumer, they are all having dark stores and they need vehicles on daily basis. Similarly, we need vehicles on daily basis, but our delivery starts from 4 a.m. in the morning and ends at somewhere around 10 a.m. After that, the vehicles are vacant. And that is where I think these are some of the examples we can collaborate within. And we can also collaborate with our suppliers and with some of the customers as well, where we will bring efficiencies. And ultimately, I think it is a vicious cycle. The more you utilize something, the technology will become better. And ultimately, the cost of EVs, we are seeing that the cost of EVs are coming down. Government is supporting it because they are reducing the interest, reducing the taxes on importing of these EVs. So ultimately, I think government is also trying to, and it was very pleasant to hear Mr. Modi speak about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. I don't think till now anybody spoke about any of the sustainable solutions anywhere. So that is something which is very a positive sign, and everybody is working on it. And I think things will evolve. Whosoever jumps in first, I think, and he was right, whosoever jumps in first gets most of the business. But as soon as you are in the business, then I think with time efficiencies will come in and you will progress more. That's my view.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, that's useful. I would add a few things from my side as well on the technologies. My view is there are certain technologies which are beyond the ROI or cashback or break-even discussion now. Nobody today discusses, should I have an ERP system in my company? ERP system does not come free of cost. The CFO doesn't say, इसका payback बताओ ERP लगाने के लिए. ऐसा नहीं होता है. Same is the case where we are reaching to a stage where customer is asking a 8-minute delivery. Can you do it without technology? Without a tech-enabled, super agile technologies at the warehouse? No. You want to play this game in this field of 8-minute delivery? Yes or no? If you want to play, this is a necessary thing. You don't ask for ROI right away. This is a necessary condition to, or necessary investment in technology to play that field. Same will apply to many other conditions. Now, are they paying back for themselves? I believe yes. Technologies like IIoT, industrial IoT, like we've got smart homes. Today we're working on smart warehouses. They have helped, like Kapil also explained, the heat map. IIoTs are helping you identify inefficiencies, wastages, lower productivities in your area of work, be it a warehouse or a vehicle. And once you identified them, it's helping you solve for it. AI, ML, as we talk of. And we talk of not optimization once in a month like SNOP used to work. It's sequential, SNOP kiya, you got a forecast. Now we tell the sales team, now you please set aside. We will manufacture, we will distribute, and we'll ask you for a forecast next month. If you work in that sequence, in that manner, there are going to be unhappiness in the sales team and within the finance guys also, because inventory will be sitting at wrong locations. What we want today and what technology is enabling us to do is concurrent optimization. What Umesh also mentioned. You don't need to do forecasting every day. You do forecasting for a larger horizon planning of your raw materials capacities, but you run the show with smarter technologies whereby you get signals from your demand, from your point of sale, and correct and be more agile.
And just to add, Shammi, also I think tech will start becoming more complex. So far it was simple tech. We got into a TMS, which was an elaborate go-live TMS, not module by module TMS, and we realized at the end of 2 years, 2.5 years, when we were doing a payback versus what we committed in the capital request, we ended up saving 25-26% more. And those were levers which we could not imagine कि ये visible होने से इतना saving आ जाएगा. Imagine a TMS, which is a very normal off-the-shelf product. AI, IoT, robotics, predictive analytics, predictive maintenance will become more and more complex. So at the time of decision making, we should be sure that we are not able to even imagine what could be the savings. Probably with a 2% more increment or an additional module or a tweak, you might get more 50% savings out of the whole project. That is possible. So somewhere, while we do this capital and payback analysis, we should keep that in mind that maybe I don't know fully. And it's okay, because these are very new tech. Nobody knows.
Right. One last question to the speakers before we open it for the audience to ask their questions. And I'll go back to academics. Professor Madaan. We are doing so much of work building muscles around innovation, efficiency, investing into sustainability. We've gone through the problems of COVID-19 when the businesses struggled. What's your view on are we more resilient now and going forward with all the work that we're doing today?
Okay, I just have an opportunity that I have an experience from books, and I'm seeing the people from the booths out there, like they have been really doing in the area. What impression I have got it from the definition which the sustainability really means to you all is like doing something for environment, something like green activities, if I'm not wrong. Am I right? But that green is really not that green which I say in environment. And people are looking forward, the sustainability is that green is the money. They want to have some synergy. They want to have synergy with the environment. They want to have a synergy with the economic. And they also look forward, the society should get a benefit out of it. If you take the triple bottom line altogether, that will give like sort of a perfect definition of sustainability. But what exactly is one of our colleague has told about is that we are doing like simple technologies. This is like sort of the same resistance we had it like when the ERP was coming. People like when computerization was coming, the same resistance we are also seeing it like complexity will increase. It has to come systematically. It will come and it will show its sort of its impact, and like first players will get an advantage. Now, this part of what we call it to be the sustainability part, the costs would be raised by the government, by the policies, because we have been as the people working in the food industry told that there is an impact of the temperature. When it's 2-degree temperature is impacting the food production somehow. And we already had a commitment out there till 2030, 35, we're going to reduce our overall temperature to like sort of 1.5 degree, and this whole zero greenhouse emissions, how they will going to achieve until unless they have some sort of regulatory bounding out there or penalties out there on the industry will going to come up. So that will impact, that will have a cost, and for that reason we have to adopt all those what we call it to be thinking about those batteries and whatever you were talking about is like sort of the way with which the sustainability could have been brought. So I have like sort of put up like few categories. Like there are like sort of 6 areas which call to be an impact area, which industries can focus, specifically the supply chain industries can focus on. First, of course, like low carbon emissions, what exactly the greenhouse gases they have been emitting right now. Could there any way with which to some degree they started reducing the greenhouse emission? The second could have been the amount, as you have told about the improving efficiency is one way with which sustainability can be brought. The third way, of course, is like the triple R's. We used to talk: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And most of the time, we have been talking about the need of warehousing out there in case of mostly the forward supply chains, like the supply chain moving in the forward direction till we reach to the customers. Now, there is a strong requirement. We have seen, like, we are claiming, like, warehousing is very difficult even for the forward. But what will happen, like, we started doing some sort of an activities in the closed loop systems. We say that we are taking the products back from the customers, and future will require to do that. Future will require. So even the industry in India can start thinking, the warehouse companies start thinking that how we're going to manage if some sort of returns, some sort of closing the loop will going to happen. Yep. The third one, we call it like we can use the products like more biodegradable products. We can utilize more biodegradable inputs. We can utilize non-toxics. We can opt for, and the last one is called bio-based products. We can utilize out there. These are the 6, 7, but it's like sort of one area you can focus more and the less on the other side. Being sort of a person who has been like sort of putting the conclusive part, or like last person talking on the topic, I have realized somehow, it's like sort of my observation. We have been teaching out there in the academics, and I hope people from the practitioner side also been realizing it. We still don't have, like, in the warehousing, I think packaging, standardized packaging has a huge role. The skill is like still lagging. Those people who have like very strong skills in the area of warehousing and the understanding even the improving efficiency and all those things will come up when there is a skill in it. So we are still lagging that skill. So I think somehow academics has a role in that area. And surprisingly, we have been like, before this session to start, I have been discussing out there with one of my colleagues out there. We still don't have like any, not much. I think one institute in India right now is giving an education on packaging technology, which is an important part of warehousing. How many of us, like being graduated from mechanical, electrical, electronics, or any branch of engineering, are you really been aware that every product is not finished or not, it requires during the logistics part, packaging? How many of you are equipped with that? Or knowledge about that? That packaging is very, very important part of it. And if I say packaging has a huge impact on environment also somehow. So this part, I think we all have to think all together, and we should look forward that such type of courses should even be initiated in the academics domain. And the last thing that you have talked about is the resilience part. I think I shouldn't put it. Resilience is basically, I believe, is that we have a very good experience during the COVID time of failures. How many of you have really kept the data about that failure and how much time you have taken to recover that failure? If you have that data with you, such type of disruptions we are expecting very near. There will be huge amount of disruptions will be inevitable out there. So if you have taken that experience, that how much capabilities you have developed in terms of agility or you say flexibility to overcome those disruptions and come back to the normalcy. So that part we say it like is amount of. So this is like the industry has to answer. This is like sort of a competitive weapon for you. That you say, okay, we are that much resilient out there. So okay, that's all from my side. I think I put it here.
Thank you, sir. It's always lovely to listen to a professor. I thank you, sir, for that. And you very well summarized a lot of points that we covered and added on to the packaging piece that we missed. But that's a very important part on how we reduce the packaging costs. Over to the audience for your questions. And you will please also tell who you are posing that question to.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Naveen and I'm from CH Robinson. Okay, so it's open. I mean, I have just few observations during the sessions. So, Shammi, you made a comment that when it comes to tech, companies are not asking questions because you have to deliver in 8 minutes. And there is no question about it. And when it comes to sustainability, definitely we have seen industry perspective and service providers perspective, that there is a lot of resilience to it. So my point here is that, because this 8-minute delivery is something is driven from a customer, and something which is driven from a customer gets automatically approved and discussed and strategized. And sustainability is one area where we all as a consumer, we know that, we are not ready to pay that. So now the big question is, who is going to take that cost? Like Ashish said that, industry is not going to pay premium for that, cost. And Kapil made a comment that, companies expect them to make that investment. So now the question is that, is this the time for government to step in, and till the time we mature as a society or evolve as a society where we understand that this additional cost is necessary for sustainability, and they collect the tax and pay back to the industry in proportion to what they are doing. I mean, subsidizing some of the things like battery or something. Is it a time for this? My question is open to all. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, what we spoke about are broadly two solutions. Either the user spends for the capex, or we ask the service provider to do it. And basically, किसी ना किसी को pain लेना है. So why don't pool it? Maybe pooling is a better option. Like you pool pallets, you pool other material in your supply chain. Maybe pooling could be another option. So if somebody needs to invest on ASRS, you can contact us. We can invest it and we can pool it and we can share it with multiple users.
Yeah.
So pooling could be one area which could also be looked at. Government necessarily might not get into subsidy or into all this. They may have their own system of doing it, which might not directly benefit the user probably.
So I also mentioned, thanks for that, on the who takes the bill. Sustainability not necessarily means increase in cost. As I mentioned, when you talk sustainability, you're reducing energy costs, you're reducing packaging costs.
ये myth है.
It's a win-win. It's many sustainability initiatives, even today as they are being done, are funding for themselves and also are generating OPEX, operating cost.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Can I
that's
share
one
an
piece.
example?
Who's going to drive it and pull for it? If you put a sustainability logo that your product is green, and that's why the government is coming back and saying greenwashing, please have proof that you've genuinely done it. Because why are companies even putting that logo that we are green? Because they believe and they know that the customer will choose their brand over a competitor brand if that's a differentiation. Is my shareholder asking for it? Yes. It's not just the customer, the shareholder also is asking for it. So both the parties are pushing for it. The costs, to a large extent, the initiatives that can fund for themselves are already taking place or have been kicked forward. Yeah, you were saying something.
Energy management solution for a 1 crore plus electricity bill for one site is a payback within 1.5 years using AI.
So, Shammi, I want to add 30 seconds on this.
Yeah.
30 seconds. I want to add 30 seconds
Please
on this
take.
topic. You said that, the Blinkit we wanted. Actually, no. Blinkit came and they convert our mind
Yes.
to get for that. So there is a difference. Perhaps we need one Blinkit for us. So that could be the government. Because today we are talking so much on sustainability, and many of the organizations are taking in their initiative because government had initiated that. If you are a listed company, you have to have a certain XYZ in your annual report, or you have to report something. So government have to play a role, because otherwise it is going to be a chosen few. So if you have to convert the chosen few into mass, that everyone has to do, I think their government have to play a role.
Sure. We can take a few more questions. 2 more questions, please.
Hi, good morning everyone. So, good morning because good morning is more energetic. Good afternoon, I feel very lethargic. So, good morning everyone. This is Arif Gupta. I'm representing Pridal Private Limited. It's a logistics company. You can find us on your lanyard today. Okay, so this is not a question, but this is a viewpoint which I have, and probably I'm relating a lot to Mr. Kapil because I'm from a logistics background. Now, the industry is really fragmented, right? There are companies who want to probably pay more for sustainability. I understand that sustainability can fund itself, but there are companies who want to pay more. They want to do green, But then there are companies who are just looking at cost. So it becomes really difficult for a logistics company or for a supply chain or for a vendor to sort of differentiate, and how do you actually move ahead with more profitability, because ultimately everyone is looking and working for profits, right? Now, having said that, I think I'm missing out your name. Yes, Mr. Naveen said from CH Robinson is the government is taking initiative. Let's say, for example, in US, recently Tesla made more money selling their carbon credits rather than selling cars. So say they made $1.79 billion while they sold their carbon credits. So maybe something on those lines can happen in India going down the line, because if there is support from the government, then it makes more sense for people, most of the people, the bheed, to actually follow that thing, right? Otherwise, it is few companies who are actually doing what they want to do or what the vision is like. So I think government is taking such initiatives. Today also there was a news that all the plastic bags will have barcode on it. It's a news from today or yesterday, I read it, so that they can see which one is the thicker one, because thicker ones are easier to recycle. So government is taking those initiatives. Probably we as industry have to push more to get to those levels wherein we can bring in more sustainable practices within the organizations, and then it can be somehow rewarded by the government, just like US does by selling carbon credits. So I think this is a viewpoint which I feel, and probably you guys are much more experienced than I am, so you guys can sort of add on, and probably I'll gain some more insights from this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was useful. Thank you so much for your comments.